If you're thinking about buying a property this year, the number one question that might be on your mind is, should I go with a new construction home or should I buy a used home? Well, each of them definitely have their pros and cons. I'm going to explain to you exactly what the differences are so you can make an informed decision for yourself this year. Now, while I think either option is a great choice, there's going to be one that's going to be the better choice for you. And so in this video, I'm going to help you decide exactly what you should be buying for your first home, whether that's a new construction or a resold home. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name's Katon. I'm a loan officer from San Diego, California, and on this channel, I help people just like you learn how to buy their first home and make the mortgage process a lot easier. All right, so let's start off with the pros of a new construction home. Now, granted, I might be a little bit biased in this because for my first home, we ended up buying a new construction home as well for a couple of reasons. For us, one of the biggest pros is the most obvious one. We were the first ones to live in this home, so we knew if there were any issues, and we're technically responsible for any issues that come up because we were the first ones really in here. And being that we were the first ones really in this home, we got to take advantage of the fact that everything was new. So we had new carpets, new flooring, new appliances, all of that was brand new, and that was really appealing to us when we bought our home. Another big reason why a lot of people like to go in new construction homes is something that we didn't have an option for when we bought our place, but a lot of builders will let you customize your home during the process. Usually you'll get access to things like a design studio where you'll pick upgrades from the base model of the home, get to pick out the flooring, the cabinets, the countertops, all of that fun stuff. So for a lot of people buying their first home, this could be very, very appealing because you basically get to really put your personality into the home from day one. Another big pro for buying a new construction home, especially if you're buying it in California, is there are a lot more energy efficient upgrades that are built into these newer homes that you don't typically see in older homes because those weren't really the standards back then. With a lot of the newer construction projects, you'll see built-in features like smart lights and smart garages already pre-built into the homes, those things that you could probably do on your own, sure, but it's nice to just have them already there from day one. And specifically, if you're going to be buying a home in California, they have this new law that passed, so all of the new constructions have to have solar at least pre-wired or already pre-installed. So if you're somebody who's pretty energy conscious or really just looking to cut back on your energy bill, that's a huge plus to go with a new construction home. And aside from all of the creature comforts that do come with buying a new home, probably one of the biggest pluses, especially if you're getting in on those first couple of phases, is it really makes for a really great investment if you're getting in early on. You see, typically with how a new construction project works is they release the homes in phases. And typically the earlier in the phase that you get, the lower of a price that you're paying on the home. So for example, for the home that we bought at around $525, and we were actually pretty close to one of the last few phases. And the final home that was exactly the same model as ours sold for around $680, I believe. So that's a huge increase in just a short amount of time. And speaking of financial benefits, depending on the market that you're in, a lot of builders are throwing in really big buyer incentives for going with them to buy your first home. Now, while we didn't get any huge incentives because of how crazy the market was when we bought, I've seen builders today offering as much as $10, $15, even $20,000 to help out with buyers' closing cost credits or to help them get a lower rate if they go with their in-house lender. Now, make sure you keep watching because I'm actually going to go over why I also think that while this is a pro, I also think it's a little bit of a con, using that word very liberally, but I think it's a really good incentive really for first-time home buyers who would like that extra bit of cash, especially moving into a new build home. All right, now let's talk about the pros of buying a resale or a quote-unquote used home. Now, for starters, typically speaking, resold homes are cheaper than new construction homes. Now, I said generally because there are some cases where, at least on paper, the price of the homes might be more expensive, but when you're talking about overall costs, because these are already in established neighborhoods, they may not have those extra tax assessments or mellorues that might be associated with new build homes. And on that note, resold homes are already in fully established, fully built out communities. Whereas in new construction homes, you might be hearing a lot of construction noise, especially in those first few years as the entire neighborhood gets built out. With resold homes, you're buying into an already established neighborhood. So not only are you buying into a community that's already fully established with roads and construction and all that stuff, but also fully built community utilities, for example, schools or local parks. So with buying a resale home, you can enjoy these amenities from day one versus, a new construction where you might be still waiting for those to even be built out. Another big pro, and this is one that might be a pro for you or might not be, but resale homes tend to have a little bit more quote unquote character to them. Where most new construction homes are pretty much built with the same kind of stale open layout concept, and there's very limited variations on those plans, resale homes, weren't always built like that. So you might find a little bit more variety in resale homes as opposed to kind of the very strict structure of new build homes. Even if you're going with different builders, they all might look more or less the same. Another big pro for buying a resale home is it's already got established landscaping. From having a fully landscaped front and backyard or whatever else the previous owners have already done to the home, this could actually save you a lot of time and money versus a new construction home where you would have to do a lot of this landscaping and exterior decorating yourself. Now, while there are many advantages to buying a new construction home, I would probably be remiss to say that there aren't some pretty big disadvantages if you're considering that route as well. For starters, the biggest one is it can take literally months, if not a year or longer, for you to end up moving into the house. On average, it takes about 6 to 8 months for a new construction home to be built from the ground up, which can be a very long time for you to move into your home. In just the last year, I saw this exact thing bite a lot of home buyers in the butt because rates skyrocketed pretty quickly over the last 6 months. I had home buyers that were originally pre-approved with a 3% interest rate, and by the time they actually got into their new build, they were sitting around 6 to 6.5, which was a big jump as far as affordability. Now, some mortgage lenders will let you lock in that rate for a longer period of time to help you mitigate that risk, but it is something that you should understand up front. So if you're somebody who's eager to get into your new home right away, a new build might not actually be the best option for you. Another big problem with new constructions is all of the delays that end up happening. When you initially sign that contract, they'll give you an estimated closing date for when that property should be completed. But that doesn't account for all the different kinds of things that can really happen, like supply chain issues or just construction delays in general. So even though you have a date for when you're supposed to move in, this might not actually be the day that you move in at all. More than likely, it'll be a little bit after. Now, another big con that I hear a lot, especially lately with new constructions, is just the general quality of the build. I mean, if you think about it from the builder's perspective, they're trying to build this thing as cheap as possible so they can make the most money as possible. So going back to that idea of the design studio, right? Oftentimes you'll get really excited about all the different upgrades that you can put into it. But when you look at the cost of, how much they're charging you for simple things that you could probably do yourself or hire someone outside to do it for you, you might actually save money doing it that way versus doing it through the design studio. Additionally, another big hidden cost with buying a new construction home is typically something called Mello-Roos or special assessments. Especially if it's a brand new community that basically the city is helping build from the ground up, you're going to be paying for that in the form of your property taxes. And on top of that, you might not just be looking at property taxes, but you also might be looking at HOA. Even if you're buying a single family home, these are called planned unit development, so there might be some sort of HOA fee involved to take care of all the other big amenities that they're putting in there, like a community pool or a gym. So oftentimes buyers will get really excited about new construction homes because they're just looking at the price of the home. When you do the math and add it up on the monthly payment, it's actually often a lot more expensive than buying a home even a few $10,000 or so cheaper than the new construction home. So for example, if you had additional fees between Mello-Roos, special assessments, and HOA of about $600 a month for your new construction home, that translates to roughly $100,000 extra in purchasing power if you decided to go buy a resale home instead. So if you are considering buying a new construction home, you want to be looking at the totality of the costs, because more often than not, your monthly payment and your closing costs could be a lot more than if you bought a resale home instead. And that reminds me of another thing. As I mentioned, one of the pros of buying a new construction home is that big buyer incentive that they give you for using their in-house lender. The problem with that is a lot of those terms are kind of sticky. So yeah, often they'll give you, $10, $15, $20,000 to use their in-house lender, but their lender is basically the same as the builder. So they could be jacking up their costs as well. It could end up being a wash. So that's why it's always important to make sure you're shopping out your mortgage options between outside lenders and not just looking at that big incentive, but looking at the total cost of that loan, especially over your first 3 to 5 years. So make sure you're doing your due diligence when you're looking at a new construction and exploring all of your financing options, not just falling in love with that big incentive that you're getting from the builder's lender. Now, one of the biggest things about a new construction home is generally the quality of the build. And I mean, think about it. When they're building the home, they want to make as much profit as possible. So they're not always going to be using the absolute best materials or best appliances when they're putting in the home. So while yes, you're getting a brand new home that no one's ever been in, that doesn't mean it's necessarily a super quality home at the same time. Often they're using pretty basic appliances unless you're buying that upgrade package, and they're definitely using some pretty cheap paint as well, which you're more than likely just going to end up painting over anyways. Now, while for some people getting cheap quality homes might not be the end of the world if you're getting a new one, for some people, that might be a big deal breaker, so it's something to consider. And if you are thinking about buying upgrades for the home, you might want to double check the cost before you do it through the design studio. Oftentimes, we'll see all these big, added things that you could add onto the property, through the design studio, whether it's flooring, lighting, windows, whatever else. Make sure you're actually paying attention to the cost of those things, not just adding on to the budget. Well, it's great that you can finance these costs through the purchase of the home. Some of these costs might not even be really what it's worth. So it's always safe to double check check between, whether you're going to do it yourself or hire a contractor to come do it for you. Get some quotes on what those upgrades would cost if you DIY'd it or hired somebody else outside versus immediately going with the design studio. All right, now I know I spent a lot of time talking about a lot of the cons that come with new construction. I probably have more to say, honestly, but I'm still got some stuff for you about resale homes too. For starters, the obvious one is that resale homes already had previous owners in them. And unless you really know that owner, you don't know what they've done or how they've fixed things in the home. This is probably the biggest reason why I say, regardless if you're buying a new construction or a resale home, definitely be getting a home inspector in there to make sure that any work that's been done or any upgrades that they said they've done have been done in a really good workmanlike manner. Especially if the home is older, they can definitely throw on a new coat of paint or maybe some flooring, but there might be some other issues that you can't see, obviously. Usually big things like roofing or plumbing or, the wiring in the home might not be up to code or might not be up to snuff for where you'd like them to be as far as the safety issue is concerned. So something to think about. On top of that, resale homes aren't always in the best neighborhoods, for lack of a better word, especially the older ones. These homes have been here for a very long time, sometimes 50 years or longer. So these neighborhoods aren't necessarily always the best kept. So while yes, they may have a pool, they may have a park, they have other things going on for them, are they well kept up? These are things that you have to think about as well, at least from that perspective. So oftentimes when you're buying a resale home, you kind of want to be buying it for the idea of what you can do with it. I always tell my clients to try to find a home in the right neighborhood and a home that's at least got good bones where you feel like you can reasonably do some upgrades to it. Doesn't need that much work, but you could put a little bit of love into it and make it really, really nice for you. But sometimes with resale homes, there's just really not a lot you can do. Some of those homes are just in rough shape. No matter how much money you throw into it, it might not be worth your investment. On top of that, some of these older homes just aren't as energy efficient as some of the newer homes are. Whereas newer homes usually use some of the latest up-to-date technology like tankless water heaters or smart lights or things like that. These older homes aren't really built for that. Technology didn't exist at the time. So usually you're dealing with older furnaces, bigger water heaters, the tank ones, or maybe just faulty or older wiring that might not be compatible with some of the things that you're trying to put in. Now, while this isn't necessarily a con for every kind of market, one of the big things that you have to understand with a resale home is you're not dealing with a corporation as a seller like you would with a builder. You're dealing with an individual, a person selling you the home. So whereas if you can't get the home right now with a new build, you can just get on the wait list, there's really no wait list for a resold home. You just got to really do your best and put your best foot forward when you're putting an offer out there on the home with the hopes that the seller agrees to the terms that you would like. Now, while that's not always a con necessarily, because some sellers are a little bit more generous than others, it could be a little disheartening if you're getting into the process and find a home you really love and end up losing out to somebody else, knowing that that kind of home might not make itself available again. So with all that out of the way, what makes the most sense for you to buy a home? Should you buy a resale home or a new construction? Which one's gonna make the most sense for you? Ultimately, the right choice is really gonna depend on your individual needs and wants really in that home. If you're somebody who wants a home that you can customize from the ground up, you want to enjoy those lower energy bills because of all the smart home technology that's built into it, a new construction home might be the best option for you. Like I said at the top of the video, I myself bought a new construction home basically for that main reason. Another big reason to buy a new construction home is if you don't want to do that whole thing of, competing with other people. You'd rather just put yourself on a wait list and wait for your number to be called. Now, while I definitely wouldn't do that if you are very budget tight and you might not be able to wait a few phases with the price increases for a new construction home, if you're just someone who's like, I'm already buying under my means, I want this particular kind of home, new construction is going to be perfect for you. But on the flip side, if you're just looking for an affordable home, especially a starter home that's got a little bit of charm already in an established community that you can, customize yourself, maybe you're handy and you can do that, or maybe your uncle or your dad or someone else, they can do that work for you. I think that's a great opportunity for you to go buy a resale home instead. And like we talked about, there's so many different fees associated with buying a new construction home. More often than not, it's going to be the more affordable option, especially if it's your starter home, to buy a resale home instead and then just put a little bit of love into it. But remember, no matter which of these options you choose, make sure you're putting in your full research into it and weighing the pros and cons and where you stand financially so you can make a great decision. So I'm curious, which one of these choices feels right for you? Are you somebody who's probably leaning more towards a new construction home, or are you leaning more towards the resale home? Leave it in the comments below and let me know what you think. Now remember, no matter which one of these you choose, it's super important for you to do your research and take your time with this process, because buying your first home is a huge investment. And the number one thing that you should be doing before any of this is making sure that you're getting pre-approved for a home loan. Make sure you check out this video. It's going to help you out with the pre-approval process. I'm going to share with you my best tips and tricks on how to get pre-approved for a home loan. Now, if you're watching this video and you're thinking about buying a home in California, I'd love to book a one-on-one call with you to help you go through your goals and options and figure out what's going to be the best path forward to help you buy a home this year. So make sure you click the link in the description below. And if you're not in California, make sure you click the link to reach out to one of our vetted referral partners in your state to help you buy your home this year. But remember, folks, no matter which option you choose, the most important thing is to be able to take your time, do your research, and above all else, before you get started with the home process, make sure you get pre-approved for a home loan. So make sure you watch this video next, or I'm going to give you guys my best tips and tricks to help you buy your first home this year. But that's all I've got for this one. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell so you can get notified with all my content, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.